Why do we see these major changes in a region rooted in Catholicism? And what's the pro-life movement doing to protect the most vulnerable? Kelsey Wicks, Interim Executive Director of EWTN News' sister service, the Catholic News Agency, provides insight on the pro-life landscape in Latin America. Kelsey is Operations Manager for the ASI Group and has been closely watching the shifts in abortion law throughout Latin America. Kelsey, it's great to have you here with us. How do you see the trends in Latin America around abortion? We showed 3 countries. Is there hope for a renewal of protection of children and their mothers?
Absolutely. I think, you're hard pressed to find a more pro-life people than the Latin Americans. I mean, they're really, it's embedded within the Catholicism of the region. It's deeply embedded in the people there. And I think countries like Guatemala, El Salvador, and Panama really provide shining lights in terms of where the pro-life movement could be going.
Oftentimes we see that domestic violence is cited as a reason for abortion in Latin America. Honduras, as you mentioned, has really strict abortion laws, but it also has the highest rate of femicide and domestic violence in Latin America. With little criminalization of violence against women, some places do, like Guatemala, as you mentioned, criminalize domestic violence. What can be done to help women in those countries?
Well, I think that the church is doing an enormous service to women in those countries. And let's not forget that there's also a violence against women involved with abortion. So there doesn't need to be the competition that there oftentimes is between femicide and abortion. Oftentimes feminists will use violence against women and compile that into a list of rights that they say are being abrogated of women. And actually, when we look at the post-traumatic stress disorder that's induced by abortion, when we look at the assault to the human person of their dignity and the conscience of the woman as well as the child, there doesn't need to be a competition between these two. Being pro-life is being pro-woman. And I think that, the term femicide has been weaponized a bit in Latin America and promoted above a level where, violence against women is worse than any other type of violence, including the violence done to the unborn in abortion. And that's simply not true. The Catholic Church, first and foremost, serves people by teaching and preaching the truth. And that truth is that every human life is valuable from the moment of conception until natural death. And that includes women. And there are many outreaches to women, many places where they can receive assistance within the church in Latin America.
And that's definitely one thing that the church does in supporting the decriminalization of abortion to protect women, but at the same time supporting the criminalization of violence against women. In Argentina, the homeland of Pope Francis, it's the largest nation in Latin America to legalize abortion. It was a heartbreaking moment, and in a handwritten letter, Pope Francis decried the legislation, saying, "Is it fair to eliminate a human life to solve a problem? Is it fair to hire a hitman to solve a problem?" We've seen a lot of church officials in Latin America speak out against the legalization of abortion. But is the church in Latin America taking concrete measures to defend life?
Oh, thank you. What an excellent question. Let me just back up a moment and give a brief survey of why Argentina is the outlier in Latin America and in terms of abortion policies, and then talk a little bit about the specific situation there. So, Latin America is by and large deeply pro-life. The numbers out of Brazil suggest that 83% are opposed to abortion, and these numbers are not uncommon across most of the countries. As you pointed out, Chileans rejected the Constitution, the first Constitution they've rejected in 150 years because of the extremely aggressive pro-abortion provisions within the Constitution. This is not a deeply popular thing within Latin America. Now, Argentina does seem to be a bit of the outlier. And so, there are the green bandanas, the sort of green wave movements within Argentina. And the president, Fernandez, actually ran on a very transparent case that he was, as a populist, going to raise the economic case and then solve on a, quote, reasonable level the issue of abortion. And actually what the Argentinians have been given is corruption, the highest inflation, highest unemployment within Latin America, and a deeply unpopular pro-abortion stance. Now, in Argentina, the numbers are still 2-to-1 pro-life. The vast majority of Argentinians are pro-life, but those numbers are nothing in comparison to places like Mexico and Peru, where you're seeing 10-to-1, blue waves. We talk about the green wave, the blue wave, which is the color of the marches, the pro-life marches across Latin America, is something spectacular. And what's amazing about it, Montse, is that the people who make up the blue wave are ordinary heroes. They are not well funded, but they have the David and Goliath sort of slingshot of faith and conviction. And I think that they will take down the Goliath. Argentina has received a lot of international pressure that's oftentimes tied to funding, particularly from the US and from non-governmental organizations really bent on ideologically colonizing these places. So, given how weak these currencies are in Latin America in comparison to the US dollar, it really is astounding that there aren't more pro-abortion countries within Latin America. It actually shows how deeply pro-life Latin America is.
And the outside influence of money and international funding. What does legalized abortion then in Latin America look like compared to the US and Europe? Because the narrative is often skewed by people just talking about abortion generally and not really thinking about the individual restrictions, 12 weeks, 15 weeks here and there.
Yeah, well, the United States actually has the most, is one of the 6 or 7 most aggressive pro-abortion policies in the entire world. Actually, we are in the company of North Korea and China, to some extent, before the overturning of Roe versus Wade in the Dobbs case. Now we're sort of recalibrating that. But where Europe is that most countries have somewhere around a 12-week ban. And in Europe, actually, there are tremendous protocols in place to preserve life, even in these disappointing countries where, it's still allowed up to 12 weeks, but you have to go through 3 doctor's appointments in order to gain access to abortion. And there are, of course, places like Malta and Poland where it's not allowed. But, Europe sort of finds itself in the middle ground. And then you have places in Latin America like Argentina,
right.
Around 15 weeks, and places in Mexico that have legalized abortion. Now, what's really interesting is, it is a movement fueled by elites, again, from outside money. So in Mexico, the first district within Mexico, the first state within Mexico, to legalize this was actually the place where Our Lady of Guadalupe resides, Mexico City district, and the federal district there. And the current president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, is actually the one who instituted that.
That's right.
That change. Now, he's the president of Mexico. He hasn't been able to do that across all the country. It is an elite movement. It's fueled by the courts. It's fueled by outside money. It's not a Latin American deeply held belief.
Well, that's a great summary of what it is that we're dealing with there. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Thank you, Montse.